Today we have a new company that we're going to be introducing to you, and it's Chakana Copper. A lot of people are very curious about copper, and we're going to be going over what the demand is, what the macro environment surrounding that is. We're going to be going over a quick rundown of the company itself, where is it located, and what are the different targets that it has. We're also going to go over the management team. It's very important for you to know that when you're looking into a company, who is running the company, who's in the board of directors, do they have certain institutions and certain investors in there as well. And then we're going to take a moment to take a quick dive into the company itself, into their targets. And in subsequent interviews, we'll be taking a lot more deep dive into each one. But to do this, we have David Kelley. You are the CEO, president, and director. My good man, welcome.
Thank you, Brandon. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, just like I said before, this is an introductory interview. It's the first time that you've been presented in front of our viewers. So if you don't mind, if you can give a really quick overview of who you are and some of your management team that you've put together for your company.
Yeah, sure, Brandon. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. This is an exciting moment for us as a company. My background is a geologist. I've got over 30 years of experience. Studied at the Colorado School of Mines here in Colorado, where I still live. Our management team is exceptionally strong in exploration. We have our chairman, Doug Kerwin, who's a world-renowned exploration geologist, a very experienced and successful explorer globally over his career. John Black is another geologist on the board. John is also an economic geologist, very successful, has a similar background to me in working for major mining companies for a large part of his career, but then transitioned to the junior sector in the last decade and a half. And John is the current CEO of Regulus and Aldebaran Resources, two different mining companies exploring in Latin America. But previously, John was the CEO of Antares, who had a very successful discovery in southern Peru and divested that asset for $650 million to First Quantum. So we have the technical expertise on the team, but we also have the commercial expertise to monetize the discovery that we make. And that's essentially the model that we're following for Chakana Copper.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that very much. And you mentioned it very quickly there that you are in Peru, and it's actually your ticker is Peru.
Mhm.
Can you go over really quickly a little bit about whereabouts in Peru you are, and maybe a really quick overview of where that your main targets are as well?
Yeah, I mean, Peru is a great place to be. I've worked all over the world in my career. I think I'm over 35 countries that I've worked in internationally. But Peru is a mining country, and that's a great place to start, right? You want to be in a country where they have a really solid mining law. You want a country where the government really supports mining and is behind it, and you also want to be in a place where the people that live in the country support mining. So we chose Peru to focus on because of those attributes. Within Peru, we're in a particularly good place. We're in the Ancash province. It's just north of Lima. It's one of the premier mining provinces in the country, in my opinion. It's home to the Antamina mine, the largest mine in Peru. It's also we're 35 kilometers south of Barrick's PERU mine, which is a world-class gold mine that's just to the north in the same geologic setting that we're at. So we're in a place where infrastructure is outstanding. There's grid power, there's a road network, there's mining infrastructure that supports all of the mines. And even within our own district, we're in an active mining district with 4 operating mines, processing plants, and communities that work and support those operations. So for us, it's a great Peru is a great place to be, and in particular within the Ancash province, it's especially good for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. And that's something that a lot of investors are always curious about as well. You could have great deposits, you could have great opportunities, but if that's not a good mining jurisdiction, if there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape you have to go through, it makes it that much more difficult. Where you are currently, how are the local officials and the skilled labor that's around you that you're able to tap into?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, the government's really supportive, but also the local government is very supportive, and particularly in these times. It's everyone in Peru is struggling right now with COVID-19, and it's a great opportunity for the mining industry to step up to the plate and do as much as they can to help communities. We've had a program of helping the local communities around our project with donations. We've been donating medical supplies. cleaning supplies, basic necessities, and food to families immediately adjacent to our project. And that's just one of many, many examples of the mining industry stepping up and helping communities in Peru and trying to get them, to survive and get through this pandemic that, we're all suffering from, but they are in particularly, taking the brunt of it.
And with COVID-19, absolutely, it's going to continue to unfortunately affect a lot of different regions, a lot of different countries, and it's going to be here for a while. But I can imagine those companies that step up to the plate, they're able to really work with local governments and local workers as well. That'll go very far in both those workers looking at that company, but also the government as well. So it's tough times, but we'll definitely make it through. So I appreciate hearing all the work that you're doing with your team as they're getting through everything to do with COVID-19. Now, when it comes to drilling itself, can you go over a little bit now, taking a little bit of a dive into what your current drill program is? Are you cashed up for the next few little drills that you're going to be doing? If you can just give a quick overview of that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we've got a 15,000 meter drill program that we're about to initiate. Some of the big news recently was the fact that we received an expanded drill permit that allowed us to move into a new part of the project area where we have not drilled yet. We've got some phenomenal targets. They've all been worked up. We've been able to do all the surface work, geophysics, geochemistry, mapping, sampling, alteration studies, that type of thing. But we haven't been able to drill there yet. And this permit allows us to move into this new area. So we're super excited about that. We have 15,000 meters fully planned. It's fully budgeted. We have a treasury balance right now at 6.5 million Canadian, which is more than enough to get us through this 15,000 meters. And that information will go together with the 30,000 meters that we've already completed on the project to put that together and form the first maiden resource that we'll publish on the project.
And I appreciate that little bit of information there because I know some investors were curious who've been following your story for some time that there was a delay in your drill program. Can you speak a little
Yeah.
bit about that and where you're taking it from there, pushing forward?
Yeah, permit delays are not uncommon in Peru. It is a very bureaucratic type of process that you have to go through. There's still a paper-based society, so everything is done by stamping documents and signatures and notaries and hierarchical levels of approval and that type of thing. One of the interesting things we've seen is that we actually got this permit during COVID-19, and we thought, that we would not be able to make any progress on a permit when things shut down. When the state of emergency was declared in March 15th, everything shut down. All the employees of the government were sent home. There was no work being done. And then slowly, it took about a month, but they created a portal through the Ministry of Energy and Mines for companies to communicate with the ministry. They set up their employees to work from home, and suddenly things started to happen. And I can tell you right now that things are happening at a very fast rate, I think even faster than before, because they know how important mining is to restarting the economy. It's the one industry in Peru that they think can restart quickly, create jobs, create economic benefit to communities and to the country, and they're supporting that 100%. So I'm glad to see that. I think it's been a welcome change by many of the companies to see the permit process improve. What's behind us is behind us, right? It's water under the bridge at this point. We're just excited to have this permit and be able to move forward.
Absolutely. I mean, and move forward, you will, and you'll be attacking your property. Now, if you can go over a little bit about the mineralization, obviously it's right in your name that copper is absolutely one of the metals that you're going to be going for. But are there other mineralizations that you're looking for? And what type of mineralization can investors expect that you are looking into throughout your drill program throughout this year?
Yeah, this is a really important point. We are a copper-focused junior company. We've had very strong success with finding copper on this project, but it's really important for the investors to realize that we also have very high gold and silver that goes with the copper. In fact, more so than I've ever seen in my career. Part of that is explained by the fact that the deposit type we're exploring is a deposit type that's somewhat different. It's they're tourmaline breccia pipes. It's not the common copper gold deposit types you hear about are porphyry coppers or skarn deposits. Epithermal deposits, but this is a hybrid of those. It's related to an intrusion. It's potentially related to a porphyry at depth, but we're dealing with breccia pipes that are formed above an intrusion. They're vertically extensive. They occur at surface. We've documented 23 confirmed mineralized breccia pipes at surface. We've already found a blind one that doesn't come to surface in our drilling. So if there's one, there's going to be more. So you can think of these as kind of, if I just use my hand as a prop, the breccia pipes are the fingers. They're coming off a large intrusion at depth, which we haven't seen yet. We haven't drilled deep enough to see this, but these breccia pipes are vertically extensive. They're very high grade. They have copper, gold, and silver, and even down to 740 meters depth where we have high grade mineralization, we still have not seen the signs of this intrusion at depth. So it's really exciting from a geologic potential standpoint.
Yeah, and I appreciate that very much, explaining about the breccia pipes, because there are a lot of investors who are still getting their feet wet when it comes to exploration and mining. A lot of millennials are really starting to come in and realize, wait a second, we need this for absolutely everything that we have, from our laptops, our phones, everything. So I appreciate that. That goes a long way. If you don't mind, if we go a little bit more into the education side of things, a lot of people have been talking about the case for gold. I think that's been hammered into all of our minds over the last few months. A lot of people have been talking about the case for silver as well. If you don't mind just taking a couple minutes here, what's the case for copper? And what's that macro environment looking like that investors should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, copper is a fundamental metal for it's an industrial metal, right? It's the foundation of our society, really. I mean, copper is critical for building infrastructure. It's critical for our homes. It's critical for any electronics. The problem with copper is that the industry is suffering from lack of investment over the last couple of decades. Companies have not spent as much money finding new copper as they should have been. There's been significant disruptions in the copper supply. We're seeing those even now with strikes and COVID-19 effects. The other problem is that a lot of the mines that are producing the copper that we use today are running out of ore. Their grades are dropping. Their profitability is declining. So we're seeing mine closures. And on the flip side of that, since there hasn't been the investment in finding new copper deposits, there's a looming supply gap, and multiple research groups that have studied this problem are basically coming up with the same answer, which is there is a looming supply gap that's coming just on the basis of current demand and current predicted supply that's going to be coming on. On top of that, as a backdrop, you also have the clean energy initiative and electric vehicles, and that creates a huge demand that's not even part of this supply gap that I'm talking about. So the near term outlook for copper is good. The long term is phenomenal. And being in this position where we've already made a discovery, we have high grade copper, we have other metals that allow you to participate in the current bull market in precious metals. It's really a unique opportunity, I think, for an investor to come in and get exposure to a project that has all the right characteristics of something that could turn into a mine and could be a significant producer and create significant cash flow.
Absolutely. And going on that exact point you just meant there about investors coming in and having an opportunity to really take advantage of the supply glut that we know is going to be happening in the coming years. When looking at your chart, it's been fantastic over the last few weeks. You've seen your chart almost double since then, or your share price, I should say. For any investor who's looking to this, maybe they're looking into your company afterwards as well, and sees that really high appreciation in a short amount of time, what if they had the thought of, have I missed the boat? Am I too late? What would you say to an investor who had those thoughts?
Yeah, well, they certainly haven't missed the boat. I mean, we're just beginning, and one way to look at that is what's the potential of this project? Are we almost done with the exploration and we found almost as much as we think we're going to find? That's not the case here. We've only tested 7 of 23 outcropping breccia pipes. We know we have blind breccia pipes. We know we have deep potential. We know the breccia pipes are getting bigger as we go deeper. The upside potential is enormous. And I look at it from the standpoint that we've really only scratched the surface here. We have so much exploration to do. So the project is going to grow. There's no question about that. The other way to look at it is the real value creation in the industry in the initial segment is really the exploration discovery stage, right? So taking an initial project, finding something on that project, and then proving it up, drilling it out to the point that you can demonstrate the amount of metal that's in the ground, and that's a rigorous process that we go through in the industry, and then studying that and putting economics on it, right? So determining whether or not this is could potentially be a profitable operation. There's huge value creation that happens in that process, and us sitting here on a new discovery with the metal grades that we have in the location that we have, and sitting at a stock price of 50 cents or a market cap of around $50 million, that pales in comparison to the potential that this project could generate. As I mentioned, John Black sold the Hakura deposit for $650 million. Okay, so that's the kind of scale that you can see in this industry. If you're very successful with a discovery and it's of the scale that a major mining company wants to take on, then really the sky's the limit as to how far this can go.
Yeah, and very well said. Look, David, I appreciate very much coming on for this interview, taking your time to speak to not only your current investors, but potential investors as well, and painting the picture for what the opportunity is in copper, what the opportunity is in Peru, but more specifically, what that opportunity is with Chakana Copper. So, my good man, we're going to be doing a lot more interviews coming up in the near future for investors. We're going to take a little bit deeper dives into the project and into the mineralization, and really help people not only understand the project in your company, but continue to be updated on the project in your company as well. So thank you very much. And I look forward to the next time that we're able to speak again.
Thank you, Brandon. I really look forward to it as well.